You could say there's good and evil forces at work on Earth, in the world. I like to think of it more as like higher and lower consciousness, more free versus restrictive forces. Because the idea of like evil being irredeemable, it's actually, at the end of this video, I'm going to address that and show how even the bad that's going on in the world right now and the evil, there's a silver lining to it. But I do want to illuminate how these darker, restrictive, controlling, lower density, frequency, evil, whatever you want to call it, forces, how they like to hide in good causes, in morally good, morally just, morally right, light, enlightened causes. So, for example, there's a ton of so shall we say shadow sides to Western medicine, to that whole industry. And let me back up by saying too, a lot of the people involved, like in Western medicine or any of these different organizations or societal structures, there's so many people involved that have no idea, like they're in it for good reasons. They're not in on the darker, cynical sides of these industries. Like even like, and I'm like hesitant to go to name too many things because I don't want to cause, this video isn't about creating charge and divide, but like even like something like Planned Parenthood, where the intention is very good and just, and it's marketed as this morally woke organization. There's a lot in the underbelly of that organization that is, shall we say, far far on the opposite side of good and just. But yeah, there's organizations like societal structures in place like Western medicine, like the whole like I call it like the woke movement, like helping suppressed identities, like when gay marriage was more of a thing a couple years ago, like I was super excited when that all was getting pushed, but I really wasn't aware of the agenda behind why it was getting pushed. Same with things around women's rights and the Me Too movement and all the Black Lives Matter stuff. Now it's the dark energy or forces, whatever you want to call it, it hijacks the actually good, just causes. So like for Western medicine, it's helping people get better, right? Like that's the just cause. For any kind of human rights, gay, transgender, women's, African American rights, like these are just causes. It's for equality. The vegan movement, having less meat in your body, comparing someone, energy aside, that has bacon and meat like 3 times a day versus someone who has like acai bowls and very little to no meat, like the person with less meat is going to be healthier. The vegan push is actually a good, healthy thing for the human population, and yet and again, I don't want to name too many names, don't want to cause divide, but like people like, for example, Bill Gates is one of the biggest funders of Beyond Meat products. And there's no question that, again, these darker forces, these not so benevolent people and entities have hijacked and have joined the bandwagon, of this morally good cause in disguise of a darker agenda that they can push out through it, right? They don't do it like the, things like Black Lives Matter. And again, like I don't want to make it seem like the message is a good message. Like I get it. I understand it. And yet you have to be able to see who's funding it, and just have the awareness that within these morally good structures, and again, like I'll go back to Western medicine and like the whole vaccine and the preventative infectious disease industry, you get to see that there's a goodness front. There's a morally, we're gonna save the world. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is gonna save the world from disease. How kind. And yet when the big pharmaceutical industries, mafia-esque power they've had, the philanthropic stories start to lose their validity. So what's the silver lining with all of this? If there's actually, and again, there's like, out of all of the human beings in the world, like what are we, a couple billion people, like most people are inherently decent, good, people that can't get you sick. Side note. There's only a very small handful of people that, shall we say, do not know what they do. And some of them do know what they do, but even if they do know what they do, they've grown up and have been in family lines of absolute, abuse of power and a lot of them like sexual abuse and all this stuff, especially these big, powerful, elite, ultra wealthy families. But at the same time, we can have compassion for that piece, but at the same time, it's like you don't stay with an abusive boyfriend because he had a rough childhood, you know what I'm saying? You're not gonna be like, oh no, it's fine, like, he just had, I'm gonna stick with it. No. And that brings me to the silver lining of all this. So I talk about this a lot, but it's important. When you're in a job that you hate, or you're feeling broke, or you don't have currently a lot of money, or you're in a really shitty relationship, or say you have health concerns, or you get cancer, or some other health complication, all of these undesirable things, right? The undesirable thing may, and again, like I would argue, not even argue, I would just point truth at it, like, these darker forces are not desirable forces we want on this planet, we want in our daily lives. But like, the silver lining is, if we didn't have these things happen, these dark forces here, enforcing masks and all this stuff, and back to my other examples, if we didn't have the contrast, the pain of like, a crappy job, or relationships, or money problems, or health problems, we would never change. The silver lining is that these painful realities, these painful forces bring about change that we'd never have, if they didn't exist. So, you're in an abusive relationship and he keeps hitting you with his hands or with words, because words can be just as, damaging. Eventually, it's going to drive you to a place of pain where you get out of that relationship. Same with a job. If you're going to a job every morning and you absolutely hate it, and you're in so much suffering, eventually that pain is going to be so encompassing with you that you make a change to a better job that you like more, that pays more, that's more in alignment with what makes you feel good on a daily basis. It's the same with health stuff. It's the same with money stuff. The contrast, the pain, the undesirable circumstances sheds light, sheds awareness on things that previously weren't in the light. So when you have a human race that is so complicit to wear masks and to get kicked down and the balls on their knees, and again, I say, like, I get it, guys, like, I get it. I understand that there's a lot of businesses that are in so much fear that they're doing, and some of them still subscribe to Western medicine. A lot of them, most do, and they're genuinely trying to keep people safe. So I understand. I understand the acquiescence, the compliance to a degree, and yet this is all happening so we can eventually wake up. And as it gets more intense, as things beyond the mask start to get rolled out and mandated, we get to start to look around and see our brothers and sisters, masked up, muzzled up, however you want to look at it, and we start to see the pain and the contrast of humanity actually being in pain, actually being enslaved, because without this, we wouldn't have been able to see it so clearly. We wouldn't be able to, most of us anyways, wouldn't have been able to see the financial change, the emotional chains, the disease chains that we hold on to every single day that are working more on the subconscious level. So are there dark forces that are controlling things? Absolutely, but can we stop even shaming them and move towards a space of excitement and seeing them as the blessing that they are,